Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. My name is GBay99, and today we're going to talk about the preseason changes for Season 4. I'm going to walk you through what I think are the most important things to look at with the patch notes, explain some of the changes, and give you all advice. Because this patch was so big, I'm just going to talk about the biggest changes that I think you should all be focusing on. If you want to see the full patch notes, though, with all the changes, the link is in the description down below. But we have a lot of changes to cover, so let's just jump right in. Riot wanted to change the overall flow of the game and balance it out more this patch by doing two major things. Firstly, they adjusted the leveling curve so duo laners can keep leveling without falling so far behind, and secondly, they adjusted the gold and XP ratios for various objectives around the map so they scale appropriately throughout the game. This is all fine and dandy, and it's a nice philosophy, but the really interesting stuff you can start forming strategies around is what you find in the nitty-gritty details, the first of which I want to talk about being trinkets. Everybody now has an extra item slot to purchase one of 3 new bonus items called trinkets, each with their own unique ability. The first gives you a free ward that lasts 90 seconds from levels 1 to 8 and 120 seconds from levels 9 to 18. The second allows you to scan a small area revealing and disabling all wards, traps, and devices, and the third acts as a mini clairvoyance, revealing a nearby area for 1 second. Now let's talk about all these in detail, starting with the ward trinket. This is the one I actually think you should all stay away from. Keep in mind one of the changes this patch was a change to wards, where each player now has a cap of 3 stealth wards, and this counts as one of them. It's nice to get a free ward from this, especially in the early game, but it's no substitute for the real thing, and just takes up one of the 3 slots you have for wards that you can place. My advice to you is to take one of the other 2 trinkets, since this one will only tempt you to not buy normal wards, which you still need to be doing, and it will also get countered decently hard by the scanning trinket. This trinket can be used very well in high level play, and you can do many cool things with it at all levels of play, but in my opinion you should exploit the other 2 trinkets first before you start working with this one. The second trinket is probably the most interesting, the strongest, and the one I recommend that you all get. This trinket reveals and disables nearby invisible wards, traps, and devices, completely countering the ward trinket, and because so many people are taking the ward one still, you can use this very effectively. Every player can use this trinket in a lot of different ways, regardless of your role. Not only can it counter people like Teemo who have annoying traps, but laners can use it to clear normal wards and set up ganks for junglers, and junglers can use it to safely counter jungle and prepare to take map objectives with it. The only issue with using this trinket is being smart about where you scan, since it has a very long cooldown and a very short radius at levels 1 through 8. As long as you're warding properly though, and if you keep in mind what I taught you in my warding video, you should be able to see or logically guess where your opponent placed their wards, making this trinket very effective. The third and final trinket is probably the most underrated one in my opinion, and that's the mini clairvoyance trinket that reveals a small radius within a certain distance for 1 second. CivHD's clairvoyance video is a prime example of how something like this can be useful, and this trinket will be very useful if that scanning trinket ever becomes the new normal trinket that everyone's getting. You can use this to follow enemies who flee into brushes, or scan the river when you know the jungler should be finishing his jungle path and ganking you. While this trinket is more situational and just a little weaker than the others, to be honest, I highly suggest you all still check it out. It definitely can be used in a very cool variety of ways, even if you do use it much less than the other 2 trinkets. This is a nice little cycle, I think, that Riot's created with trinkets, where no matter which one is currently popular, you can always pick a new trinket to counter it. If everybody's using the free wards, you can just pick up the lens trinket to scan them away. If everybody's using the scanner, then it won't even be that useful since there aren't any ward trinkets to counter, and most players will probably be scared to ward in the usual spots, so you can pick up the CV for extra map vision and utility, and if everybody's using the CV trinket, you can always just switch back to the ward one, since it's basically a more permanent version of CV that just has a shorter radius. As I said, it's a nice system that Riot's created, and even if it is currently a little unbalanced, I look forward to experimenting more with it in the future. The next thing I want to talk about is the new 2-1-2 laning phase that some teams are running, where they run 2 players top instead of running a jungler. Riot wanted to make junglers able to reach their end game fantasy with some of these new XP, gold, and item changes, but ironically they actually did a good job of making junglers almost obsolete in lower rated games. 2-1-2 laning is a somewhat viable thing now thanks to the adjusted leveling curve letting duo laners level without falling behind too much, along with some of the new items introduced that allow players in a duo lane to essentially share the last hits. My advice to you is maybe take advantage of this if you want, but keep in mind jungling is still better than having two people top lane since you have an extra player running around the map helping anybody who needs it and taking map objectives. Not to mention, a good top laner who's prepared for it should be able to 2v1 top. But it definitely is a very interesting thing to see a new strategy emerge with this patch. While you should be careful since Riot may not keep it, I don't think they want to completely eliminate junglers or anything like that, definitely check it out and be prepared to face it. Here's a quick tip for any top laners who are struggling against this strategy. Pick people like Yorick and Aurelia who have good 2v1 capabilities due to their last hitting sustain and harass potential, and just last hit. Either your opponents will slip up and do something like make the mistake of diving you, or you'll still gain as much gold as either of your opponents do, but with the added bonus of slightly out-leveling them. Finally, the last big change I want to talk to you about is the Masteries. For the most part, I really like all the Mastery changes, and there are some really cool combinations you can run with them. I highly suggest you all give some real thought when doing your own Masteries before I game. My personal favorite combo is playing Aurelia while running Double-Edged Sword and Second Wind. Aurelia thrives on being really low health due to her being able to proc that ridiculous stun, and because all her healing abilities do a lot more at lower health since she's healing the full duration of the ability rather than just healing back to full health. These masteries let you deal more damage while getting to that low health and then letting you stay alive longer once you're there thanks to Second Wind, which is a really cool combination that I like a lot and I'm glad was introduced this patch. There's all sorts of combinations like that you can use, so be sure to experiment for yourself and maybe leave a comment telling us what masteries you like to run with your favorite role or champion. There were a ton of changes this patch, most of which I wasn't able to cover in this video, like champion changes, item specifics, and even stuff like the capped award limit that I just sort of brushed over. So it's hard to get a good read on all this, but while there certainly are some weird things that Riot did, and some things I flat out dislike, like nerfing most supports while not touching others like Annie or Zyra, and again making jungle a role that's almost not needed anymore at lower ratings, I am definitely excited for what some of them have brought, and I look forward to experimenting with them further. But if there's anything you didn't like, be sure to be very vocal about it and tell Riot so they can change it before Season 4. Your feedback will definitely mean a lot in the upcoming days. Thank you very much for watching, and special thanks to those of you who've still been watching, enjoying, and sharing my videos to various social media sites lately. I know my videos have been much more theoretical, much more about attitude, concepts, motivation, and some might even say my videos have taken a little bit of a dip in quality due to my focus on moving to Seattle recently and my previous focus on casting. I appreciate that you guys have been sticking with me, and I hope to be back to my old ways very, very soon. So thanks again to you all who are still helping me grow by sharing my content all around the community. Don't worry, as soon as I moved into this new apartment in Seattle, I'll be sure to bring you all sorts of new amazing content, and I can't wait for some of the videos I'm going to be bringing you in the near future. Until then though, thank you all very much for watching, good luck in solo queue, and have a wonderful day.